Hello guys and welcome to another video. In this one we'll be talking about replacing your brake discs and brake pads for E87. Make sure you stay to the end where I'll be sharing with you some important notes that you need to be aware of when you're doing brake disc and brake pad change. These are the tools required and this is the steps you need to take to replace the brake pads only, and these are the steps I'll be taking to replace the brake discs. So as you can see in the back, these are the different screws we'll be unloosening. So you've got two screws which hold the caliper in. They are under a rubber cover. We've got two screws in the back that hold the caliper housing. And then one screw in the front which holds the brake disc in place. Step number one, loosen up the brake disc. You want to do this when the brake is still on, otherwise it'll keep spinning, so it's best to make it the first thing that you do. Step number two, you want to remove the caliper clip. It can be a bit tricky sometimes. You can put a bit of force on it, just make sure not to bend the actual clip too much. It is very strong, so it shouldn't easily bend anyways, but yeah, just give it a few tries and it should come off easily. As you can see here. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to remove the caliper holding screws. You got to remove the plastic covers. Just put in a flathead screwdriver and you can remove the covers very easily. Next, remove the actual screws. My car uses a H7 bolt. Again, it'll take a while to loosen up. It doesn't actually completely come off, so you just unscrew it and then it stays there, but you know, it doesn't actually come off completely. Next, we're going to use a screwdriver to push the brake pad away from the brake disc. So generally you wouldn't want to do that, but you can do it slightly, just to slightly push it away, but no force, because you don't want to dent the actual brake disc. Next, we're removing the actual brake caliper. You want to make sure that it's on a platform. Next, use a breaker bar and an 18mm socket to remove the two bolts in the back of the caliper housing. It is quite strongly put in there because of the thread lock, so give it a bit of force. Make sure the wheels are also turned all the way to the end, so you can have easy access. Next, use a wire brush to brush the brake caliper housing. You want to brush the area where the brake pads go in. You don't want any dust in there. To be honest, you could also probably brush the inside of the actual caliper itself. Next, we're going to remove the brake disc. It should just come off easily, and then we're going to just brush the hub itself. I also took a chance to brush the cover as well. Then use a brake cleaner. You can use that on pretty much everything to clean it. It removes oils. It's really good. used it on the caliper housing, I used it on the hub, I used it on the disc. As you can see here, it's very satisfying to do before and after. Next, we're going to add some copper grease on the actual wheel hub. This is to make sure that it doesn't sort of rust again and stick, because sometimes this can rust and it will just stay on the hub really strong. Spray some brake dust on the new brake disc, because there's some oil that comes in from the factory. You want to remove those. Any oil on the brake disc is not good news. Next, you need to use the medium thread lock on all the screws that you're using here. So I put some on the brake disc screw, and then I put some on the other bolts that hold the caliper housing. And then just place it in place, and then put the screw in. Make sure to not over torque it. I basically broke my screw by over torquing it. It's very sensitive. It's only there to hold the disc in place, so keep that in mind. As mentioned, just add some thread lock on the other bolts and then just screw them back in. Again, screw it to torque, because that is what holds, I believe that holds the brake disc in place, so it's very, very important. I'm trying to show you the whole process, because when I was doing some research, it wasn't as straightforward, so it took me a lot of learning. This is my first time doing it, so yeah. Next, you want to just get the new brake pads, put some copper grease on the edges and on the back. The only reason we're doing this is to make it more smooth and make it no noise when you're braking. Just make sure that copper grease does not go on the brake disc and it does not go on the inside of the brake pad. So I've actually had to wipe off the excess grease, because I put some by accident on the brake disc. Next, I just put in the brake pad sensor. Usually people just break it off. I want to preserve mine, so I just pulled it out and then you just put it in. I'll show you a picture later on, and there's literally a spot where you can just put in the plug. Yeah, you can go buy a new one, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to break it. There's no need. The problem that I had here was my piston was not all the way pushed back, so it was difficult for me to put it back in. So I was actually struggling there because I did not have the tool. I had to use my hands and it was a struggle. So definitely get the tool. So the final step is you to put it back in, and then what you want to do is you want to just keep pumping the brakes until it's all good again, and then you're basically done. That's it. That's really it. If you look at the difference between the old one and the new one, it's ridiculous. See, that right there is where you put the new sensor. You just literally shove it in and that's it. Okay guys, now you're going to see some important notes that I wasn't aware of when I was searching different places. You should definitely have a read of these to make sure you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And I'll see you in the next one.